Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Harley Quinn Season 5, Episode 4. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was not expecting us to get a Brainiac origin story episode. I think this episode's called Breaking... I think I saw at the end credits, it's called Breaking Brainiac, meaning I guess supposed to be like Breaking Bad in a lot of ways, which I'm like, I can see the parallels now in retrospect. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that. It's kind of a lot of interesting elements to it. I want to talk about something really quickly first because I don't want to forget, because I had to go back through the episode to figure it out. But like, there's a few planets that Brainiac passes through. Well, Vril is his name, which I thought was interesting. We'll get to that later. But he's passing through a few planets, and I was like, I'm sure all those planets are like DC relevant. They're probably important in some shape or form. Some of them might be deeper cuts than others. But there's a few planets I recognize immediately. Daxam, it's the planet Mon-El is from, which I thought was interesting. So, because like he passes by that and he goes by Thanagar. At least in the Supergirl TV show, like, I mean, what is space travel? Like how, because they were relatively in the same general area, but I mean, what is space travel and traveling by the speed of light? So like the planets are very far apart, but they are neighboring planets. There are at least a couple planets apart from each other here, because he also passes by like Thanagar, which is interesting too, because that I guess implying that in this continuity of Harley Quinn, Hawkman and Hawkgirl are aliens versus like the Egyptian curse, where they're like people who just were cursed to constantly be reincarnated. I know Smallville went with that route. I believe DC's Legends of Tomorrow also went down that route too. To be fair, it's been a while since I saw season 1, but I believe that was the route where they went with the resurrection, reincarnation situation. So, and then finally, the third planet I recognized was Tamaran, which is, you know, Starfire's planet. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, but anyway, getting back to it, Brainiac's a character I've seen pop up in stuff from time to time, whether it's Smallville, Supergirl, the animated series. Most recently, well, I was about to say most recently Krypton, but it was like, no, more recently being My Adventures with Superman. And it's always interesting the different interpretations of, to me, there are two main interpretations of Brainiac. There is this version where you are an alien and you go around collecting planets, and the other one is kind of what they did for My Adventures with Superman. And I think the original animated, the animated series from the 90s, I believe. And someone can correct me, I believe the 90s animated series is the one that started the storyline of Brainiac being an AI from Krypton, not necessarily an alien species, but I could be wrong. But those are the two typical ones, and obviously him being an alien, they went with that AI one for My Adventures with Superman. This is going with the he's an alien species, just like the show Krypton did, and that showcased him being a planet collector. It seemed like in that one he actually collected planets. In this, he only collects cities. I could have sworn he collected entire planets, but maybe I'm misremembering for Krypton. I want to say it was entire cities. So yeah, but like once again, I only know Brainiac and like kind of see his people of Kulo and him having like the wife and kid, and it feels almost like this very, very stale, like stiff family comedy in a weird way. It's how they like, I was not expecting like, oh, in the life of Brainiac or Vril, because I was like, oh, his real name is Vril. Like I thought his name was Brainiac, so that's really interesting. But you meet him and his wife and just kind of see more about their world. And then like, oh, they're trying to make the world perfect. And it's like, oh, this planet's perfection's only less than 49. Kulo's is 99%. And Brainiac's like, that 1% is so insignificant it won't matter. Which even I was like, oh, that's interesting. I would think you'd be super anal about that 1%. But it seemed like you let it by. But Mr. Star was kind of having an issue with it. Which I love that whole bit of like Miss Star coming in like, oh, you're gonna throw out the trash. She's like, I wish. She's like, nope, I already did it. And the whole icon of like a file is going into something being deleted. I love that. And just like, once again, just like the like weirdness of this whole family dynamic of like him talking to his child about like oh, like you can't understand. He's like, of course I can because I understand everything, and like that back and forth, and it's just kind of like that. Even Brainiac has a dysfunctional family where his child felt like, oh, am I not good enough? Do I not make you proud, father? And his wife trying to get him to talk to their child. Then like the whole sex thing, because of course it's going to be a bit where he's like, oh, he's like, I finished, and she's like, well, I will finish myself off. I love it so much. But I had a feeling I was like, well, like it can't all be sunshine and roses, because he's like, okay, I'm gonna go out and do one more job, which I love the whole thing of like, oh yeah, I went for cigarettes, one more cigarette, which I'm like, obviously the deeper cut of being like, yeah, the stereotype of the father going out for milk or cigarettes and never coming back, and it's just like, what is that? What is that an acronym for? Like, there's no way that's going to be like a real acronym from like the comics or something. If it is, that is bananas. But like also turning it into like a father abandoning their child joke is kind of wild. It can't be a real thing for the comics. That'd be some bullshit that the writers for this came up with. Just for that joke, obviously. But yeah, he went, collected a weapon that it didn't even click in my head when he's going to get a weapon that shrinks and enlarges and stuff. And I was like, interesting. And it's not until he utilizes it later, I was like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. But by the time he came back to his planet, it was destroyed. He has no idea. There are no records to show what happened. He came across like fragments of his wife's body, not unless we find out like his child went super crazy and destroyed his planet. I'm wondering, he has no idea what happened. And it's just like, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting this to get that dark. Wow. I mean, which interesting parallel considering like, it's like you are the last child of Kulo, very much like a parallel to Clark being the last son of Krypton. And granted, he's not the only Kryptonian. I mean, once again, it just depends, but it's like whether you go down the Zod and them route or even just including Kara and all of that. Which I'm so surprised that My Adventures with Superman hasn't touched on the Zod and stuff. I mean, it could always be a season 3 thing, but either way, because he realizes like, oh, imperfection, because I missed that 1%, it led to my planet's destruction, and my wife and child are gone. It's actually really heartbreaking, and it sends him spiraling that I'm gonna go out there and get rid of all imperfections until he comes across a planet that has like one of its cities is like 96% perfection. And so he decides to like perfect that city to 100% and minimize it and encapsulate it in something perpetual to keep it stuck like that, which is interesting too, because that technology is based off like his son worked on something and trapped it in something. So it's like, yeah, this way you can't mess with it, father. Like all that gave him ideas to do what he does. And he's just been going years and years and years. I mean, they never specify how long he's been going at this, which is so fascinating. It's interesting too, considering like they brought up the whole point of like Coco is a monkey and will like eventually like die, you know. But like, because there's the whole their approach to like the afterlife is kind of almost like uploading your consciousness type of thing. So I did think that was interesting because they didn't specify how much time has passed, but enough for him to travel around the stars and collect all these places. But eventually it kind of wore down on him because he's like, this became my purpose. This became my thing in life. But it's like, maybe this is all there is. Like, maybe this is kind of where we kind of end things, until he came across Earth. And it's just kind of like, oh my God, this planet. It's like, I forgot what the percentage was. It was something extremely low. And it's like the human intelligence was 2%. I love when you look at the different cities. It's like Hong Kong was 10%. Philadelphia, for whatever reason, is getting shit on because it's minus 67%. I was like, damn, Philadelphia. Like, Harley Quinn just shitting on Philadelphia. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Philadelphia is just one of those places that get shit on in general, and I'm just not aware of it, you know? I'm not well-versed in, you know what? I mean, there's a few like states and cities I know they get shit on, but I'm not going to call anybody out. I'm not in a position to do that. I think one of the other places was like Sao Paulo was like 6% or something like that. But Metropolis is the one place on Earth that was like a decent enough perfection. It's like 20%. It's not great, but it became more of a challenge for Brainiac, and that's where this all plays out. I was like, interesting. So I was like, that's why you were doing what you were doing. I thought it was interesting. I'm like, how is no one picked, like no one in Metropolis thought it was weird that these robots just picked up? I mean, literally Superman is there, and was he just so distracted with his own bullshit that he never like realized what was going on? Maybe he got lied to. Like, you would think you were, I mean, Lois is starting to pick up on it, and Perry kind of shut that down. But let's not forget Perry has been replaced by Clayface now, so. But it was like, I mean, Lois is starting to sniff that out. Clark is off planet, kind of taking a break. So, but once again, all this was happening before he left, and he didn't get a whiff of it. Hell, like, you flew off the planet. Like, did you not go to, you went to a different planet. Like, did you just happen to go in a completely different direction that Brainiac was in? Because his ship is in the, like, outer space, but nearing the atmosphere to some, well, he's probably still further away from the atmosphere. He can also cloak it if he sees that Clark is on his way, so he can probably cloak it so Clark doesn't realize he's there. There's a lot there. So then we pick up from where the last episode left off, where Ivy and Harley are getting kidnapped, and it's just like, I forgot what it was. It was because he was like talking to them through that speaker or whatever, and it was extremely loud. And I forgot how Ivy got on Deal or No Deal, and Harley's like, "Oh my God, are you still doing that show?" And then she had to, "No, babe, remember Joker killed Howie Mandel?" I was like, "Oh right." I was like, "Fuck, I forgot about that." I want to say that was season 1 he did that, which is so ironic too, considering there is a new Deal or No Deal, because Joe Manganiello is hosting it, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a reality TV show person or game show person or whatever, so none of that ever really piques my interest. But I want to say, isn't it the show he's hosting right now? Which is so interesting too, because obviously he had his connection to the DC universe playing Deathstroke. So I was like, oh, that's just interesting how that works out. But obviously there is no future Deal or No Deal, because it all died with Howie. It's like, oh my God, he was such a great host. He'd be great on The Voice or whatever. And I was like, what? Why would he be on The Voice? Like Last Comic Standing, maybe, you know? So I love that whole bit back and forth. But then, like, the reason why I love that he's got all this information on Harley, and it goes on Ivy, and then goes to Harley, and it's just like IBS current, and then it's like nothing else about her. But yeah, her and Ivy, but more specifically Harley, is the biggest X factor. And obviously Brainiac doesn't deal with X factors, especially considering like that 1% was an X factor that led to the destruction of his planet. Once again, all this time later, he still has no idea what went down, but he's not going to let any X factor go, because it's affecting the percentage of him like perfecting Metropolis. And it's just like the moment Harley and Ivy got there, specifically Harley, because yeah, Ivy can be destructive in her own right, but it's like in conjunction with Harley's craziness is when that destruction really ramps up, and she's a typhoon all in her own right. And I love we find out the bit that Coco is dead. I was like, oh, that's extra sad. Who knows how long Coco's been dead, and he's been joking with Coco. Even had that porn bit where he was like, oh God, what was it he was saying? What was he saying? Like affirmative. He's like, yes, like basically he's like, dump those files all over her face like the filthy, and stops. He's like, Coco, you shouldn't see all that. It's like, Jesus Christ. Kulo porn. Never knew we were gonna go down that route. I love it. But yeah, it's sad. Like the one tie you had to your planet and your family is dead. It's your pet. I mean, it's a monkey, so it was only going to survive so long. So it's nothing but bones. So it's been dead for a while, but he's been so crazy that he's been imagining that it's still alive, and you're like, that's extra sad. I was not expecting that to be where that goes. So, but yeah, just before he's about to get rid of Harley, who's running her mouth off of like, are you fucking those monkey bones? She's like, yeah, you definitely having sex with those monkey bones. But then the X factor I wasn't expecting is Lena showing up, because she made a deal with him. And I love her being like, Brainy. He's like, no, my name is Vera. She's like, but Brainiac is so much better. I was like, I love that you're the one that gave him the name in this universe. So fascinating. But I was like, isn't Brainy, it's been a while, but I'm like, isn't Brainiac 5's nickname in Supergirl, the TV show? So that's why I'm like, I don't know if that's something like unique to Brainy, And like Brainiac 5, that's a nickname people call. Like I don't know if that's something from the comics or is that just something they did for the Supergirl TV show. It'd be interesting if it, because like Brainiac 5 is like a descendant of Brainiac, so I think that's fascinating. Her giving him the nickname Brainy, that might be like a wink and nod to that. But yeah, she's the one that made the deal. It kind of makes sense. But it's like, yeah, your brother being the megalomaniac, and I was so curious to see what direction they were going to take Lena in this, because obviously she was very much not her brother in Supergirl. That was the whole point. She was actually a good person until like, well, she kind of slipped and slide because of her brother's machinations, kind of turning her more into him and made her and Supergirl beef. But she kind of turned things around before the end of the series, going into the like final season and stuff. So it seems like, I mean, we don't know Lena's why she's doing it. She's like, right, I told you could have the city, do whatever you want to, just leave the people to me. So I don't know if it's a thing of Lena kind of sees the planet as kind of a pile of trash that she's like, we should leave it behind. So you will take the city and its people, and I will lead the people kind of in whatever status we're in. Like, I don't know what, not unless the plan is like, oh, like you're going to take the city, but the people, like you're going to like use it as an opportunity to run Earth or something. Not unless this ends up being a storyline where instead of like President Lex, we get President Lena. Not unless that's the route they're going. Like, I'm like, what is she getting out of this? But she has Brainiac erase Harley and Ivy's memories, and I love her just like randomly showing up. And they're like, oh, she's like, yeah, you guys should never ever leave. So she wants them to get grabbed up by the city too. But why? Why is she taking such an interest in it? Maybe she just legitimately maybe never had a lot of friends, and she really likes Ivy and Harley, because she even admitted to Brainiac, like, you can't kill Harley. I've become very attached to her. I'm like, why? Like, that's what I'm so curious to understand Lena's motivations behind all of this. Like, what is she getting out of Brainiac doing what he's doing? Like, when did she make a deal with him? Like, how long ago was that? Because we have no idea how long Metropolis has been in this state of, like, with all those, like, drone bots and stuff, like, going around, so. But Harley remembers more of it than Ivy does. There's another series I was wondering about this for, and I'm just trying to remember what it was. I'm wondering if it's because Harley's mind is as fractured as it is because of that. So she remembered, like, that's why she can subtly remember, like, she's putting her food together. Because at first she was like, oh, I want a drink. She's like, for whatever reason, I want cocoa. And then we see the food being, like, taken in the form of, like, Brainiac ship, and I was like, that's interesting. Like, I like legitimately think it's because she is crazy. It's making it so that because her mind is broken and fractured, so that when it's all said and done, that's why on some level she remembers it more than Ivy does. That's my justification for that. But I want to say there was something else I remember watching, and I thought like maybe that was that, like some I can't remember what it was. There was something I was watching where someone like had like a dual thing going on with their mind like that. And I was like, oh, maybe because their mind is fractured, that's why one side of you remembers, but the other one doesn't. I can't remember what it was. I was like, I don't think it was a Moon Knight situation. But it might have had something similar to a Moon Knight situation where it was like a dissociative personality situation going on. But I can't remember. Like I said, I don't think it was Moon Knight, but it might have been something in a similar vein, and I just can't remember what it was. But I remember theorizing about something similar. So I'm curious if that's going to be the reason why Harley remembers to some extent. Even though it's not in the forefront of her mind, it's in the back of her mind, So we'll see how that all plays out. Where this ends up taking us, because that's going to be happening in the background, and our heroes are going to be none the wiser, because he's not going to go after like they only found out because he went after them directly, so they'll probably have to stumble across it. Maybe something happens that later on jogs Harley's memory about the whole experience. We'll have to wait to see, but I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.